Hey, tree, you know you're amazing, right? Sorry guys, I just need a minute here. Oh yes. Welcome back guys, and thank you for joining me again on another new vlog. I've stopped in this little spot here because I know there's a composition here somewhere. In fact, I know there are several compositions here somewhere because I've shot several here before. But I've just noticed something which I've never really noticed before. All of these trees have got a slight lean on them, and a slightly lean into one side. Not very much, it's not all that noticeable, and it probably won't make any difference in the photo, to be quite honest with you, once I've set the camera up and sorted the tripod out. But I think there's a portrait orientation shot of these trees here. Now obviously they're quite dark at the front, they've got the sun behind them, backlighting them, and they're almost going to make a silhouette. So I think the choice here is either to try and slightly overexpose the trees, so I'll make sure I get the detail and the shadows and everything in the trees, or to slightly underexpose the trees so the trees themselves are in darkness and I've got the sunlight in the background correctly exposed. Alternatively, I could of course shoot several different exposures here and then combine them all together and bring out everything, the correct exposure for the trees and for the sunlight behind them. That might work. In fact, that might work better than anything else. So I'm going to stop here and see if I can get a shot. Like I say, it'll be portrait orientation, focused on some of these trees here, probably f/16, so I can try and get as much in focus as possible, and then we'll see where we go from there. I've got to say, you really notice the lean of those trees when you put that photo into portrait orientation. It's fairly obvious really. The area I was standing in is kind of on a little bit of a slope anyway, a downward slope, kind of slopes off a little bit to the right, just to the right of my composition. But it's a shot that I've always enjoyed taking. Doesn't really change that much over the course of time, but you do notice the difference in colours and textures and everything during the different times of the year. So if you photograph that in winter, it's very bleak and dark, no leaves on the trees or anything like that, so it kind of gives you a bit more of an interesting, moody image. But in the summer, it's all green, as it was today. So I've walked through this spot several hundred times before, and I've never actually stopped to photograph these few trees here. And what I'm looking at really are this tree here and this one here just behind it, but also then just a few more yards behind that, I'd say about 15-20 yards back, there's another tree kind of set right in the middle of the composition, which kind of draws your eye further into the image, to be quite honest. I think I'm going to shoot this with a portrait orientation, but I've just noticed also as I'm walking through and looking further along the path, a little bit further along from the far tree, there's another tree that I like the look of at the moment, and I think I'm going to stop there also and see if I can get a shot of that. But for the time being, this is going to be a portrait orientation, taking in this tree here, this one just behind it, and the third tree a little bit further back. So I hope you like this image also. Just in between capturing those two images, I kind of looked to my right to where the woodland became a little bit denser, and I noticed something a little bit concerning on the side of one of the trees. A massive, great big bee's nest. I'll show you a picture of it actually because it's quite impressive, but thankfully there were no bees swarming around it and I couldn't hear any bees at all. So I'll get the impression that it may just be a dormant nest that's just lain dormant for a few years, where the bees have used it once and then disappeared and gone to use a different one the following year. I hope that's the case, but if it stays there, then there's every chance in the future that the bees could be using it again for some reason. but at the moment it doesn't seem like it's being used. Well, it's a hive of wildlife around here. I was stood just around the edge of this pond here, just over here somewhere behind these trees, and I was taking some photos of some yellow flowers that are sticking up in the grasses in the water. So you'll see dotted around lumps of grass just sticking up, reeds, and they've got these bright yellow flowers on them. So I thought, well, I'll stop and take a photo of that. So I was taking a photo of that, and while I was stood there taking a photo, I suddenly looked across the pond and realised there was a grey heron just over here somewhere, beautiful grey heron. And I couldn't really get very close to it. I got my 70 to 300mm lens out and got as close as I could and tried to take a photo of it, but then I realised that I could probably come round to this side of the pond and see if I can get a little bit closer to it. I think I can, but I don't know how well this image is going to come out once I've got it back to the computer. I've done my best, got really close in as far as I can get, as close as I can get with the 300mm lens, but I still think it's a little bit too far away. But in the meantime, while I'm taking photos of that, I've suddenly heard some splashing around in the water. Look round and there's a pony walking across the pond, and then while I'm stood there about to tell you about that, I saw another pony walking across the pond behind me. So I know the ponies are around here somewhere as well. So I'm going to look out for them as well while I'm here, but I just couldn't resist taking a photo, firstly of those beautiful yellow flowers, but then that perfect grey heron just on the pond over there. I'll show you those pictures now. So I love the texture of the bark on these trees. I think I'm going to stop here and take a photo of this. The light around this tree is absolutely beautiful, but the tree itself is in shadow because of the other trees, the other side of the camera, which are kind of blocking out the light a little bit, and some trees further over in that direction that are also casting shadow towards this tree. So this tree is very much in shadow with quite a bit of light dappled around it. It looks beautiful, so I'm going to stop and take a photo of it. But then I think also further over in that direction, one of those trees is going to make for an interesting composition as well. I'll have to walk over there and have a closer look at those once I've taken this one. But this is an interesting spot. So that tree, focused on that tree, f4, ISO 100, 250th of a second, with this path here running along the right hand side of the image. I'm also going to find that I'll have to clone the bin and the bench out from behind the tree in post-production later. That's not too much of a job to do, but I really quite like this image, and I like this spot because I was back here in March, mid-March, when we had very thick snow on the ground just for one day, and I took a panorama quite near to where I'm standing now. I'll show you the picture now because I want you to see for yourself the difference it makes at different times of the year, and then I'm going to take another photo just here of these trees. So as you can see, these trees were essentially my panorama back in March, shooting from this tree here right at the far side of the image, but also then coming across to this tree over here, or this clump of trees just here at the extreme left hand side of the image, and I just wanted you to see essentially where I was stood when I was taking that photo and see what the difference was from then to now. So I hope you like that one. The tree, of course, that was on the extreme left hand side of that winter panorama is this one here behind me. Now I knew, given the sunlight today, that this side of the tree would be lit up and that the far side of the tree where I was stood before was going to be in darkness anyway. So I knew that I was coming back to this spot to capture this tree because I wanted to capture it in the light. So as you can see, I've walked around to the other side of the tree and I've taken a shot of that tree at 1/15 of a second, f16, focused on the tree itself in the hope that everything just in front of and behind the tree is acceptably in focus, and ISO 100. I'm going to make that the last shot of the day, folks. I think I'm going to pack up here now and go home, try and find a cool spot to get out of this sunshine, and I hope you've enjoyed the vlog. If you have, please remember to give it a thumbs up, and also please remember to subscribe to my channel, and I look forward to seeing you again on another vlog very soon. Bye for now.